Good morning and welcome to segment number 5 of Wake Up Wives. Today we are talking about intentional intimacy. So I know that everyone is kind of like, what? We're going to talk about that. One of my main reasons for wanting to discuss this topic it's simply because it's so taboo, and I think that we are not discussing intimacy in marriage enough. I don't think there's enough resources around it, and I don't think that a lot of people are comfortable with even having that conversation. So I want to welcome you again to segment number 5 of Wake Up Wives. It is August, so this month is actually going to be a 2-part series, and I'm very, very excited about it. So today, let's get right on into it. As people join, as people, comment, as people like to do so, I will be open to answering questions, having some Q&A, and really wanting to have some healthy dialogue surrounding this topic. Okay? So let's jump right on in. I want to introduce myself for those who do not know me or for those who it's their first time joining. My name is Sharnetta J. Harrell. I am a social worker by day, and I empower millennial wives and women to peel back their layers one day at a time. I am an online resource for you, and I am living and walking by example. Okay, so let's jump right on into it. I always encourage women, even if you're not married, even if you are aspiring to be married, this segment is for you. Wake Up Wives is really an opportunity for women to get in the know before they go, right? So, Saturdays, the weekend, it's busy. We have church activities. We have all of these different things going on. And so Wake Up Wives is really an opportunity for you to get in the know before you go and for you to be empowered before you start your busy Saturday and really before you start your busy weekend. Okay? So if you're married, if you aspire to be married, or if you are engaged, Wake Up Wives is for you. So again, I want to welcome everyone to segment number 5. Today, we are talking about intentional intimacy. August, I am doing a 2-part series. Again, I don't think that, we are talking about intimacy in marriage enough. And I really wanted to again, be an online resource for you to have some healthy dialogue around it and to really empower you and provide you with some tips. Okay, so today, let's jump right on in it. Why did I choose this topic? Once again, I think that talking about sex and intimacy in marriage is taboo. I think that we are not talking about it enough in church. We're not talking about it enough, amongst our relationships. We aren't talking about it enough in our friendships and in our sisterships. We're just not talking about it enough, right? We see it on TV, we see it in movies, but why are we not talking about this subject? So I was sharing with my husband, that this, I really wanted to, do this. And then I was like, I'm scared, I don't know how, people are going to feel about it, and he was just like, just go for it, just do it. And, he said to me, if you want to empower women, you got to be transparent and you got to talk about real life stuff. Okay. So let's jump right on into it. I'm going to give you 4 points today. I'm going to give you 4 points today on ways to be intentionally intimate with your spouse. Okay, so first of all, before I jump into the tips, I just kind of want to encourage you to understand that there is a big difference between intimacy and sex. right? They're two totally different things. I think sometimes when we hear the word intimate, we immediately begin to think about sex immediately. But the reality of it is, I'm being intimate right now. I am, in my home, sitting on my couch, being vulnerable and talking with you guys. That is really a form of intimacy as well. Intimacy can be environmental. It could be a setting. It could be amongst people. It could be, I can be intimate by having a conversation, with, my mom, in an intimate setting. So, I really want to, empower you to know the difference. There's a huge difference in being intimate and and having sex in marriage. So there are two totally different things. When we talk about sex, sex is actually the physical activity, right, in which we engage in sexual intercourse. And intimacy is more of a emotional, and it's more mental, right? And that's really the significant difference between the two. So let's jump right on into it. 4 ways to be intentionally intimate with your spouse, okay? The first point that I want to make is get quiet, right? Get quiet. So when I'm talking about getting quiet, it really pretty much means that we want to have an opportunity to have quiet time with our spouse, okay? So, some of us like to call it pillow talk, right? And if we really go back to some of the other segments that I had completed, talking about maintaining self-care and dating before and after I do, having quiet time is very, very important. One of the things that one of the best examples, that we always hear about quiet time is praying together. I was on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this article about a couple who was empowering other young couples to pray with their eyes open. Right. And, my husband and I, we actually tried that. And when I tell you that was very, very powerful for me and him. And it wasn't just about being intimate with ourselves and being intimate with each other, but it was really about being intimate with God. Right. So getting quiet, having quiet time, other than prayer, quiet time is not limited to prayer. Right. After a long day of work, after you've cooked, after you've had dinner, cut the TV off, cut the phones off, put the phones on vibrate, and really unwind and talk to your spouse and have some quiet time about their day, how they're feeling, and how you can encourage them. Right? I think that this is key. I think that when we really begin to invest and we are really intentional about quiet time, that it really creates an opportunity to be intimate. One of the things, even on Saturday mornings, today is Saturday, when my husband and I, when we cook breakfast, when we sit in the breakfast nook and, we're just really having eye contact, we're eating, we're just enjoying one another's company. That is a form of being intentional about intimacy. If you've had a crazy week, if you're anything like me, your work environment is stressful, you're busy, go, sometimes I really have to remind myself, Sharnetta, you need to be more intentional about being intimate with your husband. And the same goes for him, right? The same goes for him, and even, taking it a step further to, date night. One of the segments that I did talk about, maintaining dating before and after I do. And I think the reality of it is, sometimes we can even date our husband and we can be on a date and we're not even being intimate. Right? We're looking around, we're on our phone, we're taking selfies, we posting to Instagram, we're posting to Facebook. But the reality of it is, be intentional about being intimate, even on a date. Make eye contact with your husband, rekindle those flames, and really have an opportunity to, really rekindle what was already there before the ring, right? So that's point number 1. Get quiet, okay? That is point number 1, okay? Point number 2, know your man, okay? Nobody knows your husband like you do. Nobody knows your man like you do. Okay? You have to know what your partner dislikes and what your partner does like. Okay? I think that this is key when we're talking about intimacy. If we take it a step further, if you've ever read the book by Gary Chapman talking about the 5 love languages, we can even take it there. You know, for me, I am a physical toucher, right? So I like to touch, I like to hug, you know, I like to, smooch, and I like to, really show my husband and express my love language to him by touching him, right? Everybody isn't a toucher. Everybody isn't a hugger, right? That's the reality of it. But my husband, and what I have learned is that my husband needs words of affirmation. So that means that my husband doesn't necessarily receive the same love language that I have, but he needs words of affirmation. You know, he needs me to really affirm him, and to really encourage him. Men and women are definitely wired differently. Men are physical creatures, right? They are protecting, providing, and professing. That is the 3 P's that they are wired to do. Women, we are emotional creatures. We are nurturers. We are lovers. And so our, immediate response when we think about being intimate with our husband is physical, right? And sometimes it's not always that. Okay. My husband's love language to me is, he thinks that actions, are my love language. And that's how he expresses his love to me, versus, him coming home and, giving me a romantic poem. My husband is definitely, if I mow the grass, if I vacuum, if I, run your bath water, those are ways that I am expressing how I love you. Okay, so know your man, girl. Know your man. Know what he likes. Know what he doesn't like. Okay, know what it is that really ignites the flame. Know what it is that really gets him going, right? If you know what I mean. Let's just be real. Let's be transparent. And I think the reality of it is, this is a huge thing that I wish that we were able to talk about more, that we were able to really engage with more, because the reality of it is, sex and intimacy is a part of marriage, and a lot of people are not talking about it. My husband and I just celebrated 2 years of marriage, and so when we think about coming home, in the afternoon, we're tired, we don't want to engage in intimacy or anything of substance, right? We want to come home, we want to lay down, we want to get full, we want to lay down, and we want to watch TV, right? But the reality of it is, who is encouraging us and who is empowering us to really be intentional about intimacy? We have to be intentional, ladies. We have to really begin to peel back our layers and really understand why that is so difficult. Why is it so difficult to maintain intentional intimacy with our spouse? Right? If we take it a step further, how was intimacy shown to you growing up? Were your mother and father intimate? Did you see them hold hands? Did you see them be intentional about spending time with one another? How was that modeled to you growing up? What are some of the ways that you define intimacy growing up, right? When we grow up, people are always telling us that sex is bad, right? Sex is bad. And so when we become married, and that's really an opportunity to glorify God and to really, please our spouses, sometimes we're clueless because nobody has shared with us, nobody has educated us, and nobody has really shown us what healthy intimacy and healthy, what that looks like in a marriage, okay? So moving right on to point number 3. Point number 3 is make up, right? So, I know all the time, we joke, about, makeup sex is great, right? So we joke all the time We joke all the time about that. And I was sharing with my husband last night about, how I wanted to, really pray about this and how I really wanted to talk about this. And he encouraged me, Shanetta, be transparent, because that is what people relate to. And so when I'm talking about makeup and I'm talking about, ironing things out after a disagreement, we always want to be encouraged not to go to sleep angry and not to, let the sun set, without making up with our spouse. And so I really want to encourage you to always make an effort and always be intentional to making up with your spouse, right? Sometimes we get in arguments, we disagree, we're like, you can sleep on the couch, right? Or, we could even take it a step further and be like, I'm not talking to you for the rest of the week, right? Or I'm not talking to you for the rest of the night. I'll talk to you in the morning, right? I've been there, done that, wore the t-shirt and sold it, okay? So what I want to empower you is to make up. Be intentional about making up with your spouse. Are you having a, minute disagreement, make up with your spouse. Take it a step further, because the reality of it is the most difficult thing about marriage is reconciling, right? Let me tell you something. Marriage will show you yourself. I tell women that all the time. Marriage will show you your true self. It will show you, your sin, and the reality of it is, the hard part about marriage is dying to self. But the beautiful thing about it is when you both make an effort to be intentional and you both make an effort to really begin to be intentional about being intimate, that's the beauty of it. Okay. So my sister Rebecca, me too, girl, making up before going to bed is so important. Yes, this is key. And the reality of it is, if we take it a step further and we really begin to peel back our layers, the thing about why making up before we go to bed can be very difficult is based on our own experiences growing up, right? I can tell you, my mom is an alpha female. She is strong. I've always seen her aggressive, assertive, right? And so growing up, my mom was, like, I'm gone, I'll leave, right? So for me, growing up and in marriage, I had to learn how to, A, not leave, and 2, not to be so aggressive, right? And not to be so, I'm leaving, I'm getting divorced, right? So we have to make up in our minds that we don't want to repeat what we saw in our childhood experiences, right? So yes, Rebecca, make up before going to bed. This is important. This is key. Scripture even tells us this. We don't want to go down. We don't want the sun to go down holding a grudge with our spouse or with anybody, right? Or even with anybody. Okay. So that's great. Last points. Point number 4. Use your words, okay? I think that, so Rebecca says, it is pride for me too, not wanting to humble myself in the relationship. Yes. So let me just touch on this very, very quick, because I can definitely identify to this statement. Pride is very dangerous, right? Pride is very dangerous. And I think Rebecca, said it best. She said, not wanting to humble myself in the relationship, in the marriage. That is, let me tell you something. If I have not learned anything else in marriage, I have learned that humility is key. And I really want to empower you not only to peel back your layers to see what's at the core, but to really pray about that. Really pray about that, because that was something that I really struggled with in our first year of marriage. And let's just be real. Sometimes I still struggle with it, okay? Sometimes I'm like, look, I ain't dealing with it right now, right? And I don't want to be humble. But the reality of it is, the Bible tells us that our husbands are to love us like Christ loved the church, right? And so what that means is I have to treat my husband the same way that I would treat God, right? And so, and what that means is, I'm not saying that he is a God or he is God, right? What I'm saying is I should be convicted and I should walk in conviction if I'm not, humbling myself in our marriage. That means that, if I'm yelling at my husband, if I'm going to bed mad at my husband, that's disobeying God, right? And so we have to get to the point where we can say in our marriage that, you know what? It's not about me. It's not about my feelings. It's not about my humility. It's not about my pride. It's about how can I glorify God in my marriage? How can I please God with my actions, with my heart? How can I do that in my marriage, right? Because the reality of it is, it's not our jobs to condemn our husbands, right? That's not our job. If you come home from a busy day, he hasn't cleaned up, the house is a mess, he's laying on the couch, it's not our job to condemn our husband, right? That's only what God can do, right? Only God can do that. That means that if my husband is connected to God and he is seeking God and he is disciplined and seeking his word, that means that he will be convicted. It's not up to me to do that, right? So yes, I definitely agree, Rebecca. Not wanting to humble yourself in marriage is hard. It's hard. It is the hardest thing I think that I have ever done in my life, right? But the reality of it is, when we pray and when we really seek God to really be better wives, all else falls together, right? So thank you, Rebecca, so much for your vulnerability and sharing that. I think that is key. Humility really starts with the Father, right? And, your daily prayer, really allow yourself to say, God, forgive me. God, really help me not to be prideful. Help me to be humble, not to my husband, but to you. This is where submission, this is how submission becomes difficult, ladies. Submission becomes difficult because we think that we're submitting to just our husband, right? The reality of it is we're submitting to God, right? Because if our husband is submitting to God, that means that we cannot submit to him unless he is submitting to him, right? That is the order of the household, right? So I want to empower you to be humble before the Lord. Ask God, Lord, help me when my husband is getting on my nerves, when we have disagreed, when we are arguing, when we don't get along, when I feel like giving up, when I feel like throwing in the towel in, when I feel like walking down to the courthouse to get the divorce papers. Lord, help me. Help me, Lord, to be humble before your throne. Help me to walk in conviction, because if I'm doing something out of God's will that's not pleasing to him, I will already be convicted, right? And if my husband is not doing something that's pleasing to God, he will be convicted. So Lord, help me, help my husband to walk in our conviction, and help us to continually seek you together. Okay? So the reality of it is, point number 4, use your words, right? Use your words. I think that out of all of the points that I have talked about this morning, I think using your words, okay? Affirm your spouse. Affirm your spouse. Okay? Hi, Miss Kathy. Affirm your spouse. This means that being intentional about intimacy, it isn't always about touching him. It isn't always about, sex. It isn't always about that, right? That's a part of it. But the reality is we have to affirm our husbands with our words. Babe, you can do it. Babe, I'm so proud of you. Babe, I really appreciate it when you did X, Y, and Z. Honey, thank you so much for always being a protector. Honey, thank you so much for listening to me. Babe, thank you so much for just being the man that you are. What can I do for you? How can I support you? How can I encourage you, right? Affirm him. Honey, you are looking good today, right? Everything doesn't have to be so deep. Everything doesn't have to be spiritual and always so deep when we're talking about affirmations, right? Affirmations can be, babe, you looking right. You've been in the gym. You've been hitting them bench presses. You are looking good. He just got a haircut. Babe, you are fine, honey. Right? Because the reality of it is, I think sometimes as women, we think that we're the only ones who have self-esteem, issues and discrepancies. Let me tell you something. Men have self-esteem too, right? Men, they might not verbalize it, but like we do, but men also have self-esteem, issues, right? And not even issues, but just self-esteem, period, right? So we have to affirm our husbands. We have to build him up, ladies. We have to make sure that when he leaves the house in the morning, that he feels like Superman, right? And that he can go out here and do all that he can do, right? Yes, Miss Kathy is amening. Yes. Oh, thank you for sharing, Miss Kathy. So the reality of it is, your husband is Superman, right? And even if you don't believe it, he's still Superman, right? So you should be affirming him that if he wanted to, if he came to you with the idea, a business idea, you say, babe, you got this. You can do it. If he's starting a new job, if he's starting a new program, he's doubting himself, oh no, babe, you got this. We got this together, right? That is how we can affirm our husbands. We have to uplift him, ladies. We have to make sure that he feels like he's on the top of the world. And the beautiful thing about this, the beautiful thing about doing this is that when we affirm our husbands, he affirms us, right? So when we affirm our husbands, he affirms us. It all goes back to dying to self. That means that I should put my husband's needs before my own. That means that when I'm up in the morning and I'm tired, I don't really feel like going to work, I got a lot going on in my own mind and in my own family. You know what? Let me focus on my husband before he walks out the door. Let me pray over him. Let me cover him before he goes about his daily life, right? So even when I'm not with my husband, even at work, if I'm on my lunch break, if I'm out on the weekends, I'm having some girl time, right? I should be sending him text messages to affirm him as well. Hey, babe, I was just thinking about you. I know that this is a new chapter for you. I know that this is going to be challenging, but you are a conqueror. God has equipped you to do all things. God has given you a specific ability and a specific assignment to fulfill, and I believe in you more than anybody else. And I want you to know that before we are spouses, we are friends, and I am your friend. I'm your cheerleader. I am your encourager, and I'm going to be here through thick and thin, rain, sunshine, snow, sleet, storm, whatever, right? So that is how we affirm our husbands, ladies. That is how we do it. Affirming our husbands is a form of intentional intimacy, right? Because the reality of it is, our husbands become more attracted to us, right? Not physically, but they become more attracted to us mentally, emotionally, right, interpersonally, when we are able to affirm them and to build them up, right? My husband always uses the analogy of a lion. My husband loves lions, and he always uses the analogy of him being a lion, right? So the other day, I was like, what are you talking about? what are you talking about? But you know what, babe? You are a lion. You can conquer this jungle, right? Our house is a jungle. And you know what? You are a lion, right? You are a protector. You are professing your love for me. You are providing for me, right? And I'm yours. Okay, I'm yours, and so I'll be. We can be the Lion King or whatever we, or whatever we can do, right? So, ladies, we are going on 30 minutes. I hope that this was truly, truly fulfilling for you. If you have any questions, now is the time. Let's have some Q&A before I wrap up. I always try to keep it short and sweet because I know that Saturdays are, our busy days and we are all over the place. Again, intentional intimacy segment number 5 of Wake Up Wives is a 2-part series. So that means that August the 19th, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, I am back. Right? I am back and I am sharing with you and discussing with you how to be intimate intentionally. Okay, again, I want to thank everybody who came on. I know a lot of people were in and out, but I want to thank you for your comments, your support. This is not easy by far. Some days I'm like, why am I doing this? Right? But this is a part of my assignment, and I am so, so thankful. I have some big things coming up on my birthday this year, September the 25th. Be looking out for it. I'm very, very excited for what God is getting ready to do, and I truly believe that along the lines of being a social worker, that empowering women is my assignment. So, again, my name is Sharnetta J. Harold. I am your favorite online wife life resource, and I am empowering you to peel back your layers one day at a time. I hope that you enjoyed the 4 points. Get quiet, know your man, make up, and use your words. Okay? Until next time, ladies, August the 19th, meet me right here, 9:45 a.m. Thank you, Rebecca. You are always a blessing, and I appreciate you. I appreciate every single one of the women and one of the ladies who joined in this morning. I hope that you guys got in the know before you go. Have a good Saturday. Be intentional. Be intentional about being intimate. I'll be back. Bye.